So we have quite a bit to talk about. And sorry, I just realized I was echoing. I hope I fixed it. Um, the idea that we can just kind of pick up and run off and act a fool with J.R.R. Tolkien's work has been debunked relentlessly without trying to really um, I guess, bury any leads. For any of you that don't know, WarnerBros is releasing not one, but two Lord of the Rings movies. And this first one's going to be The Hunt for Gollum is the working title. The working title. So this, at the end, may not even be what we call it come 2026. And I think people see Peter Jackson's name and Andy Serkis and they get really excited. And I think everybody needs to pump the brakes real fast because remember, these are the same individuals, and we'll get a little bit more into it, who took a relatively short book. I mean, depending on the edition that you have, it's between, maybe 210 to, I guess, 280 pages. It really does depend on what your what edition you have. So like my travel edition one that I have right now, it's 300 pages, but that of course also includes the first chapter from the Fellowship of the Ring, so don't forget that either. But it's crazy to me that they took a book, a very short book. I mean, if you average out all of the different editions, you're talking 235 pages. And they managed to make not one, not two, but 2.5 hour films, 2.5 hour films from a 235 page book. It's wild. It is wild. Cal G, been a member for 24 months. Thank you so much for the love and support. I greatly appreciate it. Cal G, I hope you're ready. Book clubs are about to come back, so be prepared. It says, hey, here to say, what's up? What's up? And ready for the weaponized autism. Oh, we're going to get some of that. It's been a crazy, crazy week. It's been a crazy, crazy day. So for those of you that don't know, Disney had their earnings call earlier this week, and Bob Iger once again was like, we're going to focus on quality, not quantity, and we're going to cut back on especially their Marvel output, which is hilarious to me because it's not superhero fatigue. In my humble opinion, it's not superhero fatigue. It is messaging fatigue. It is activism fatigue. It is lack of genuine, honest escapism fatigue. That is what they are suffering from. But Disney made that announcement, did their quarterly earnings call, and went on their merry way. Well, this morning at 7 a.m. Eastern, which is incredibly early, I guess depending on where you are in the world, but in the US, 7 a.m. Eastern, that makes it 6 Central, 5 Mountain, and 4 a.m. Pacific, which is wild that they would have it so early. And they dropped a lot, and I mean a lot of news. And this happened to be one of them, that they were going to go ahead and move forward with production on The Hunt for Gollum. So, according to Variety, Warner Brothers will release the first of its new batch of live-action Lord of the Rings films in 2026, which will focus on Andy Serkis's Gollum. Batch, guys. All right? They are going to mine this IP like they've never mined anything else. Here's where they try to make the audience, the fellowship, the fan base feel good. Original The Lord of the Rings trilogy filmmaker Peter Jackson and his partners, Fran Walsh and Philippa Boyens, are producing the movie and will be involved every step of the way, Warner Brothers Discovery CEO David Zaslav said during an earnings call Thursday. The project is currently in the early stages of script development from writers Walsh and Boyens, along with Phoebe Gittins and Artie, I'm not going to try and say that, Papa Giorgua, and then I tried it anyway, and will explore storylines yet to be told, Zaslav said. All right. Why would these stories be yet to be told? The Hunt for Gollum. What could it be referencing? I'm going to read for you exactly what this is referencing. So if you have the travel edition like I do, the leather-bound small travel editions, I'm starting at the bottom of page 246, and I have stretched this out as far as I possibly can to try and give them as much material as possible for what they are going to be referencing in this film. When I read these words, my quest was ended, for the traced writing was indeed as Isildur guessed, in the tongue of Mordor and the servants of the tower. And what was said therein was already known. For in the day that Sauron first put on the one, Celebrimbor, maker of the three, was aware of him. And from afar he heard him speak these words, and so his evil purposes were revealed. At once I took my leave of Denethor, but even as I went northwards, messages came to me out of Lorien that Aragorn had passed that way, and that he had found the creature called Gollum. Therefore I went first to meet him and hear his tale. Into what deadly perils he had gone alone, I dared not guess. There is little need to tell of them, said Aragorn. If a man must needs walk in sight of the Black Gate, or tread the deadly flowers of Morgul Vale, then perils he will have. I, too, despaired at last, and I began my homeward journey. And then, by fortune, I came suddenly on what I sought, the marks of soft feet beside a muddy pool. But now the trail was fresh and swift, and it led not to Mordor, but away. Along the skirts of the dead marshes I followed it, and then I had him, lurking by a stagnant mere, peering in the water as the dark eve fell. I caught him. Gollum. He was covered with green slime. He will never love me, I fear, for he bit me, and I was not gentle. Nothing more did I ever get from his mouth than the marks of his teeth. I deemed it the worst part of all my journey, the road back, watching him day and night, making him walk before me with a halter on his neck, gagged until he was tamed by lack of drink and food, driving him ever towards Mirkwood. I brought him there at last and gave him to the elves, for we had agreed that this should be done. And I was glad to be rid of his company, for he stank. For my part, I hope never to look upon him again. But Gandalf came and endured long speech with him. Yes, long and weary, said Gandalf, but not without profit. For one thing, the tale he told of his loss agreed with that which Bilbo has now openly told for the first time. But that mattered little, since I had already guessed it. But I learned then first that Gollum's ring came out of the great river nigh to the Gladden fields. And I learned also that he possessed it long. Many lives of his small kind, the power of the ring had lengthened his years far beyond their span. But that power only the great rings wield. That's it. That's it. That's all, like, and I stretched it out. Like, I added so at most, we're talking 4 paragraphs. Four paragraphs. And they're going to make a full-length movie out of those 4 paragraphs, guys. It's I don't understand. Why? Let's continue with Variety, shall we? The project is currently in the early stages of script development from writers Walsh and Boyens, along with Phoebe Gittins and Artie Papagira, and will explore storylines that to be told, Zaslav said. So we just read that. In a press release, is Lord of the Rings: The Hunt for Gollum, and it will be directed by and star Serkis in his iconic titular role. The film will be executive produced by Ken Kamins, with Serkis and the Imaginarium's Jonathan Cavendish. Excuse me. Warner Brothers first announced in February 2023 that then newly installed studio leaders Mike DeLuca and Pam Abdi had brokered a deal to make multiple films based on the beloved J.R.R. Tolkien books. The projects will be developed through Warner Brothers label New Line Cinema. Free Mode, a division of Embracer Group, made the adaptive rights deal for books, including The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit, under a venture named Middle-earth Enterprises. There's a whole lot to unpack there, guys. A separate animated Middle-earth movie, The Lord of the Rings: The War of the Rohirrim, is due December 13th via Warner Brothers and director Kenji Kamiyama. That's this December 13th, guys. This December 13th. That movie is set 200 years before the events of The Hobbit. Here we go. Here comes the fluff. Here comes the don't worry, guys. For over 2 decades, moviegoers have embraced the Lord of the Rings film trilogy because of the undeniable devotion Peter, Fran, and Philippa have shown towards protecting the legacy of Tolkien's works and ensure audiences could experience the incredible world he created in a way that honors his literary vision, DeLuca and Abdi said in a statement Thursday. We are honored they have agreed to be our partners on these 2 new films. So, 2. With Andy coming aboard to direct Lord of the Rings: The Hunt for Gollum, we continue an important commitment to excellence that is a true hallmark of how we all want to venture ahead and further contribute to the Lord of the Rings cinematic history. They are going to mine this thing deeper than the dwarves mined Moria. Like, this is going to be, in my humble opinion, guys, this is going to be bad. Because this is not a prequel nor a sequel. This is what Disney did with, what were those called? Clone Wars and the other, like, the animated shows that they had, right? I know one was called Clone Wars. I can't remember what the other one's called. I know it was something similar, but it doesn't work. It does not work. They're trying to fill out something that has no Tolkien behind it. Rebels. Thank you, Kevin. Yes. Okay, so exactly what Disney did with Rebels and Clone Wars. Oh, I forgot about Bad Batch. That too. So what we're talking about here is you are taking at most of Tolkien's words. You are taking at most 4 paragraphs of Tolkien's actual literary vision, and you're going to make not 1, but 2 new films out of that. Now, at least that's what it makes it sound like here. Maybe The Hunt for Gollum will only be 1 film, but it makes it sound like it's going to be 2. This isn't going to work. Rings of Power has proven that when you do not follow Tolkien's words and his works and what he wrote, it doesn't translate. The fellowship, the fandom, the lore in what was it? The lore purists. They're not going to have it. The Lord of the Rings fan base, fellowship, built-in customers, whatever Warner Brothers wants to call them. I'm about to insult the Star Wars fan base, so take it, at least the Disney Star Wars fan base. So take it with a grain of salt, guys. The Lord of the Rings fans, fellowship, enthusiasts, lore people. There's Tolkien scholars, for the love of goodness. We don't just simply accept everything that gets shoveled down our throats. That's why Rings of Power was an absolute disgrace and failure. That's why you don't hear about it. It's 2 years, like, we've not heard anything about season 2. Now, apparently, we may or may not get a trailer at Comic-Con, at San Diego Comic-Con, maybe sometime in July. Okay, maybe season 2 drops it. Like, everywhere you look, it's, Rings of Power season 2 drops 2024, late 2024. Like, they won't give a specific date because they are rushing in post-production to try and fix this. Season 1 of Rings of Power was such an absolute just departure from everything that made the Lord of the Rings trilogy exceptional, near perfect, as close to perfect as any film adaptation is ever going to get. And even worse, it was a complete departure from Tolkien himself. Everything he believed, the purity with which he wrote, the idealism with which he wrote, the beauty with which he wrote. He didn't need girl bosses and messaging and allegory. If you listen to him, he doesn't do allegory. He does do applicability. So that means whatever you see in the story and apply to your point of view or apply to your life, you're going to find it. That's why people, as they read and reread Lord of the Rings over the years, they resonate with different characters at different times in their life. And when you fail to understand that, and when you think everything is an allegory for modern day, or that it needs modern day messaging to be improved, or so that it is relatable for the modern audience, we have a serious problem. You can't see past your ego. You are absolutely rejecting everything that Tolkien genuinely believed and stood for, and you don't care because your message, your story, your failure is being superimposed onto his genius work. And it's a problem. It's the problem that Hollywood is currently facing. They can't get out of their own way because their egos won't allow it. And so they put this in here to let you know, hey, remember that Lord of the Rings film trilogy that it's still loved and adored and held as like the gold standard pinnacle for not just fantasy films, but films and movie and literature adaptations to film in general? Yeah, they're coming back. They're coming back, so fear not. We'll get to that in just a second. Jackson Walsh and Boyens added, it's an honor and a privilege to travel back to Middle-earth with our good friend and collaborator, Andy Serkis, who has unfinished business with that stinker Gollum. As lifelong fans of Professor Tolkien's vast mythology, we're proud to be working with Mike DeLuca, Pam Abdi, and the entire team at WarnerBros on another epic adventure. Yes, precious, Serkis said. The time has come once more to venture into the unknown with my dear friends, the extraordinary and incomparable guardians of Middle-earth. There's a problem. There's a big difference between these films and when Peter Jackson was making his trilogy. I'm just going to let you know that. The incomparable guardians of Middle-earth, Peter, Fran, and Philippa. Listen, the other problem is Amazon has already tried this. Amazon floofed up these lines too. Amazon gave all of this false sense of security to the fellowship, to the fandom, to people who genuinely love and appreciate Tolkien. And look what we got. Look what we got. We got generic, bland, indistinguishable fantasy series for modern audience that had some names out of J.R.R. Tolkien's works. That's what that was. That's what Rings of Power was. And that is the danger of any other films from Middle-earth. With Mike and Pam and the Warner Brothers team on the quest as well, alongside Weta and our filmmaking family in New Zealand, it's just all too delicious. So they're like, hey guys, we're getting the band back together. We've got the old team back. All right. The original Lord of the Rings trilogy, helmed by Jackson, grossed nearly $3 billion worldwide. Jackson's follow-up trilogy, based on Tolkien's The Hobbit, matched those grosses. We're going to get there. Fear not. One more paragraph. Jackson's first Lord of the Rings trilogy starred Elijah Wood, Ian McKellen, Liv Tyler, Viggo Mortensen, Sean Astin, and Cate Blanchett, among others. That trio of films was nominated for 30 Academy Awards and took home 17 trophies, including Best Picture for 2003's The Lord of the Rings, The Return of the King. As if you needed to know that. They're giving you all of these accolades. They're telling you all of the right things. They're saying, look at who we're bringing back. Look at who's going to be on board again. Don't you remember Weta? Remember New Zealand? Remember the guys that were there before? All right. Now, I enjoy the Hobbit trilogy. I do. But I also recognize that it is nowhere near the caliber or authenticity that the Lord of the Rings trilogy is. It should have been one film, at most two. But it could have been done in one film. It could have, and it should have been. There were so many unnecessary additions that got in the way of Tolkien's works and Tolkien's words. And I have a really big problem with that, because they already made such a departure from a book, an actual, not 5 paragraphs that they're going to be filling in on what they thought happened. No. They had an entire book, and they still managed to not be true to the lore. Now, it's nowhere near as bad as Rings of Power, but that's a very low bar to set. Now, everybody wants to say, well, Jackson didn't start working on the Hobbit trilogy originally, and he came in after the fact. And okay, well, that's because Warner Brothers can't get out of their own way. Warner Brothers thinks that they are what draws people, that they are too big to fail, and they are going to come to the shockingly humbling realization that that is not the case. And I think a lot of the reason that they're pushing out these mining experiments is so that they don't lose the rights. I honestly think that that's what it's about. And they've said a lot of the right stuff here. Honor his literary vision, ensure the audience experiences the incredible world he created. Embrace the Lord of the Rings trilogy because of the undeniable devotion that Peter, Fran, and Philippa have, right? And just so much, all of this good stuff. Weta's coming back. They're going to New Zealand. Mike and Pam are along the way with Fran and Philippa. The incomparable guardians, Peter, Fran, Philippa. I do not understand. It baffles the mind that they think that if they hollow out Tolkien's works and put their own words in there, that they're going to come even remotely close to Tolkien's literary vision. Oh my gosh. Raider, you madman, for $50. And he says nothing because that is the kind of man Raider is, but I will give you the sad one. Here you go.
Fools. Help me. Your friend.
Heroes. Remember those? Remember heroes? Raider is the hero of this stream. Thank you very much for such a generous super chat. I truly, truly appreciate it. I really do. Legionist, that's that clip specifically. I don't know why that particular one echoes so bad on the Harry part, but I think that has something to do with the actual clip itself. But so now that we've sort of seen all of the floof and all of the feel good and the incomparable guardians of Middle Earth, let's sort of talk about this. So, Hobbit Unexpected Journey. Regardless how you feel about the 3 films, one thing that can most definitely be said, this was the most accurate to the book out of the 3 films. Okay? And everybody's really excited. They're like, oh, Andy Serkis is helping direct. Well, this will be new and great, right? Because Peter Jackson directed the first one. And look, there's Fran, Philippa, and Peter Jackson all on the writing team for Hobbit Unexpected Journey. But let's go look. So is this going to be Andy Serkis's like directing debut? We're going to have to scroll down here. Oh, what is this? Second unit director or assistant director? And if we go right, oh, who is this? Why, I'll be. 'Tis none other. I'll blow it up for you guys. Oh, it went away. There we go. Then Andy Serkis himself. So Andy Serkis helped direct on the first Hobbit film. Okay, makes sense. He was in it, right? So what about Desolation of Smaug, the second Hobbit film in the Hobbit trilogy? This one had really good visuals, but it was kind of, this is where we got introduced to the love interest, if I'm not mistaken, which completely and totally undermines and sabotages Legolas and Gimli's relationship because dwarves and elves were not friends. And so the two of them falling in love completely and utterly destroys the impact and importance of Gimli and Legolas. But I digress. That's another stream for another day. Oh, look at that. Andy Serkis helped direct on that. Second unit director on that one too. All right. Well, he was maybe like a little bit kind of okay. That makes sense. He was on the first one, so sure. Well, if he was on the first one and he was on the second one, let's just see. Look, director, Peter Jackson. Writers, Fran, Philippa, Peter. All right. No, I'm not giving him a pass, guys. I'm sorry. And we're going to scroll. Keep on scrolling till we get down to the second unit director, assistant director. Whoop. Let's see. Oh, look at that. Andy Serkis. So Andy Serkis has already had directorial experience on Warner Brothers works. Now, that's not to say, obviously, that, something maybe they learned their lesson when they took a book that was 230 pages, if you average all the different versions out. 235 pages, and they made it into 3 films that were, let's look. 2 hours and 24 minutes to 2.5 hours. Desolation of Smaug. So you guys know I'm not joking. 2 hours and 41 minutes. Unexpected Journey. If I'm not mistaken, I think this, 2 hours and 49 minutes. So we're talking, we're talking 8.5 hours of cinema out of a 235 page book, guys. And they added so much to these films. There was so... And listen, Evangeline Lilly, I really like her as an actress. I think she's very talented. She's absolutely gorgeous. She knows what she's doing. She handled the role very well, but she had no business being in it at all, whatsoever. And I know that when my now 11-year-old, but when my 10-year-old read The Hobbit for the first time, that's not, Mommy, that's not in the book. That's not in the book. That's not in the book either. I said, yes, I know, sweetheart, but they had creative licensing, and it was still, and you'll hear people all the time, well, it still looks like Tolkien. It still felt like Tolkien, but it didn't. That's the thing. Anybody who has actually read the books knows that this started to take a wild departure from everything. And then you come to the Battle of the Five Armies. And I wish, like, I don't know. I wish that there was something to... the battles themselves were handled well on screen, I thought. But if you read The Hobbit, that's it. I'm trying to... Okay, here we go. We got a whole movie out of this. So began a battle that none had expected, and it was called the Battle of Five Armies, and it was very terrible. Upon one side were the goblins and the wild wolves, and upon the other were elves and men and dwarves. This is how it fell out. Ever since the fall of the great goblin of the Misty Mountains, the hatred of their race for the dwarves had been rekindled to fury. Messengers had passed to and fro between all their cities, colonies, and strongholds, for they resolved now to win the dominion of the north. Tidings they had gathered in secret ways, and in all the mountains there was a forging and an arming. Then they marched and gathered by hill and valley, going ever by tunnel or under dark, until around and beneath the great mountain Gundabad of the north, where was their capital, a vast host was assembled, ready to sweep down in time of storm unawares upon the south. Then they learned of the death of Smaug, and joy was in their hearts, and they hastened night after night through the mountains, and came thus at last on a sudden from the north hard on the heels of Dane. Not even the ravens knew of their coming until they came out in the broad lands which divided the lonely mountain from the hills behind. How much Gandalf knew cannot be said, but it is plain that he had not expected this sudden assault. This is the plan that he made in the council of the Elven King with Baird and with Dane, for the Dwarf Lord now joined them. The goblins were the foes of all, and at their coming all other quarrels were forgotten. Their only hope was to lure the goblins into the valley between the arms of the mountain, and themselves to man the great spurs that struck south and east. Yet this would be perilous if the goblins were in sufficient numbers to overrun the mountain itself, and so attack them also from behind and above. But there was no time to make any other plan or to summon any help. Soon the thunder passed, rolling away the southeast, but the bat cloud came, flying lower, over the shoulder of the mountain, and whirled above them, shutting out the light and filling them with dread. "To the mountain," called Bard, "to the mountain. Let us take our places while there is yet time." On the southern spur, in its lower slopes, and in the rocks at its feet, the elves were set, and the eastern spur were men and dwarves. But Bard and some of the nimblest of men and elves climbed to the height of the eastern shoulder to gain a view of the north. Soon they could see the lands before the mountain's feet, black with a hurrying multitude. Ere long the vanguard swirled round the spur's end and came rushing into Dale. These were the swiftest wolf riders, and already their cries and howls rent the air afar. A few brave men were strung before them to make a feint of resistance, and many there fell before the rest drew back and fled to either side. As Gandalf had hoped, the goblin army had gathered behind the resisted vanguard and poured now in rage into the valley, driving wildly up between the arms of the mountain, seeking for the foe. Their banners were countless, black and red, and they came on like a tide to fury and disorder. It was a terrible battle, the most dreadful of all Bilbo's experiences, and the one which at the time he hated most, which is to say, it was the one he was most proud of, most fond of recalling long afterwards, although he was quite unimportant in it. Actually, I may say he put on his ring early in the business and vanished from sight, if not from all danger. A magic ring of that sort is not a complete protection in a goblin charge, nor does it stop flying arrows and wild spears, but it does help in getting out of the way, and it prevents your head from being specially chosen for a sweeping stroke by a goblin swordsman. The elves were the first to charge. Their hatred for the goblins is cold and bitter. Their spears and swords shone in the gloom with a gleam of chill flame. So deadly was the wrath of the hands that held them. As soon as the host of their enemies was dense in the valley, they sent against it a shower of arrows, and each flickered as it fled as if with stinging fire. Behind the arrows, 1,000 of their spearmen leapt down and charged. The yells were deafening. The rocks were stained black with goblin blood. There you go. They got a whole movie out of that, guys. That was 2 pages. 2 pages. And they got 2 hours and 24 minutes. It's just, woof. Now, there is a bit more, because it's Tolkien. He goes into a bit more detail. Rocks were hurled down from on high by goblins above, but they held on, leapt down to the fall's foot, and rushed forward to battle. Wolf and rider fell or fled before them. Thorin wielded his axe with mighty strokes, and nothing seemed to harm him. To me, elves and men, to me, oh my kinsfolk, he cried, and his voice shook like a horn in the valley. It will not be long now, thought Bilbo, before the goblins win the gate, and we are all slaughtered or driven down and captured. Really, it is enough to make one weep, after all one has gone through. I would rather old Smaug had been left with all the wretched treasure than that these vile creatures should get it, and poor old Bomber and Balin and Fili and Kili and all the rest come to a bad end, and Bard too, and the Lakemen and the merry elves. Misery me, I have heard songs of many battles, and I have always understood that defeat may be glorious. It seems very uncomfortable, not to say distressing. I wish I was well out of it. The clouds were torn by the wind, and a red sunset slashed the west. Seeing the sudden gleam in the gloom, Bilbo looked round. He gave a great cry. He had seen a sight that made his heart leap. Dark shapes, small yet majestic, against the distant glow. The eagles, he shouted. The eagles are coming. And then he cries for the eagles a few more times. Guys, out of those 2.5, 3 pages, they got 2 hours and 24 minutes. So do not think for 1 second that they will not make 2 full-length feature films out of 5 paragraphs. On Livian, the clip with Bruce Willis is Armageddon. And listen, I'm not saying that it can't be done. What I am saying is that everything that has been released since the Return of the King does not give me confidence to hope. It simply doesn't. Star Wars fandom cannot touch Tolkien fandom. Tolkien fans rightly gatekeep the crazies. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. They don't deserve the benefit of the doubt. Some people would say that Peter, Fran, and Philippa do deserve the benefit of the doubt. Now, however it comes to pass, this is it's going to be released. The Hunt for Gollum is going to come out. Warner Brothers is desperate, guys. They need a win in the worst way. But the problem is they are not brave enough. They are not brave enough to do something new and original. And honestly, I don't think they could afford it. We just got the news today as well that Disney and Warner Brothers Discovery and Hulu are about to be, it's going to be a Disney Plus Hulu Max bundle subscription. Okay? So if you don't think that Warner Brothers won't lay down with Disney, they already have. They're going to do a bundle package. Guys, it is literally going to be the cable wars all over again. Except now it's streaming. It's going to be the cable bundling and do you have this package? Do you have that package? You could the idea of streaming was to cut the cable and be able to on demand decide what you wanted to watch. And that has slowly been corroded and regulated and just corrupted, I think is the best word I can come up with, because of these companies greed. There isn't anything else for it. These companies want a sure bet. They want to have their cake and eat it too. They want to be able to have the ideological woke propaganda, the bad things are bad, and so I am against bad things, is what they want to be able to do. They want to be able to call half the country evil, Yahtzees, psychotic, toxic. I mean, we've seen it, guys. We have seen it. And Warner Brothers, honestly, guys, think about the decisions that Warner Brothers has made lately. Like, actually think about it. There is, pardon me, excuse me. They got rid, they allowed James Gunn to come on, and they got rid of Henry Cavill as Superman, Ben Affleck as Batman, and as far as I know, even Chris Pine was shocked that Wonder Woman 3 wasn't going to go forward. As terrible as Wonder Woman 1984 was, Gal Gadot is a fantastic casting choice for Wonder Woman. I could take it or leave it when it comes to Jason Momoa as Aquaman. He doesn't look comic book character accurate. I think they did him okay. Like, I actually enjoyed the Aquaman Lost Kingdom film, but I recognize that lots of people didn't. I thought it was a solid B- movie for sure. But it boggles the mind at the choices they're making, because you're taking literally like the biggest stars that they have that are currently working in film, and they sort of just spat on them. Like, they were just like, cool, we're gonna pay $500 million to J.J. Abrams. You guys remember that? $500 million. Nothing came of that deal. Let me see if I can find that for you guys really quick, because some of you are gonna be like, it was not. No, it really was. Warner Brothers made a deal with J.J. Abrams for $500 million, and like nothing came of it. J.J. Abrams was supposed to come in and revamp everything, and Bad Robot was supposed to be like an affiliate studio, and they were gonna essentially just fight back against Netflix. That was the whole thing. Here we go. Just so you guys know, I am not yanking your chain. Do we remember this now? J.J. Abrams signs massive deal with Warner, reportedly worth $500 million. That's insane. This is from 2019. It's been 5 years, guys. Absolutely nothing came of this. How much of this they had to pay to Abrams, I do not know. But I can tell you absolutely nothing came of this. So, assuming that they had to pay out at least 2/3 of the because the way that contracts work, the party that breaks the contract usually has to pay a penalty amount, and 50% is not considered enough of a deterrent in most cases. So most contracts have a stipulation where there's a penalty clause that says if you break contract, if you don't fulfill whatever, or if for any reason we part ways without any production being met, whomever is the guilty party will have to pay 2/3 of the contract, whatever it was worth. So if Abrams had gotten the money up front, he would have had to give 2/3 of it back, right? But Warner, as far as I can tell, like no other news followed this. Nothing else followed this. So as far as I can tell, Warner was like, "Yeah, we're just gonna cut you loose because you're essentially." Because remember, what else came out in 2019, guys? Just a few months later. Okay? Think about it. The somehow Palpatine returned nonsense trash. That's what came out later in 2019. And likely Warner Brothers looked at that and went, whew, maybe, just maybe, we should back out of this deal. That's, to me, at least, what it looks like, because there has been nothing, not a whisper of anything from J.J. Abrams. Absolutely nothing. Okay? So, you have $500 million that went to Abrams, and just sort of, they just kind of pissed that away. And now, you have James Gunn, who, after Warner, do you guys remember? Oh, it was bad. It was bad. So, Warner announced, like, Henry Cavill on his Instagram, I think. Let me see if I can find it. Again, so that you guys know I'm not crazy. So on his Instagram, I believe, Henry Cavill announced that he was returning. How does he spell his name? There he is. That he was gonna return to the Cape, and because of course Black Adam happened, and here it is. See, this is still up on his Instagram. So here, I'll let the man talk for himself. Hold on. How do I get out of this? See, I am so smart when it comes to all this stuff. All right, here we go. Let the man speak. Maybe.
Hey everyone. I wanted to wait until the weekend was over before posting this because I wanted to give you all a chance to watch Black Adam. But now that plenty of you have, I wanted to make it official that I am back as Superman. And the image you see on this post and what you saw in Black Adam are just a very small taste of things to come.
Oh.
So there's a lot to be thankful for. And
there's a little arrow.
I'll get to that in time. But I want to thank you guys most of all. Thank you for your support and thank you for your patience. I promise it will be rewarded.
Oh. Okay. So Henry Cavill makes this announcement. And then I don't remember where. Was it this one? Here we go. So then he announces that he's done as Geralt of Rivia. I don't know. I'm going to try and zoom in. There we go. Continent. My journey as Geralt of Rivia has been filled with both monsters and adventures, and alas, I will be laying down my medallion and my swords for Season 4. In my stead, the fantastic Mr. Liam Hemsworth will be taking up the mantle of the White Wolf. As with the greatest of literary characters, I pass the torch with reverence for the time spent embodying Geralt and enthusiasm to see Liam's take on this most fascinating and nuanced of men. Liam, good sir, this character has such a wonderful depth to him. Enjoy diving in and seeing what you can find. Right? And everybody was like, oh, so clearly he's coming back as... Whoops. Clearly he's coming back as Superman because he just made the announcement that he's done as Geralt of Rivia, and there must be like scheduling conflicts and stuff. That makes sense. Well, then James Gunn went ahead and was like, nope, not happening. And Cavill didn't give a video this time. He just put it up here. It says, I've just had a meeting with James Gunn and Peter Safran, and it's sad news, everyone. I will, after all, not be returning as Superman. After being told by him to announce his return, this is where everybody got pissed. The studio said, make the announcement. And he did, and people went wild. They were like, yes, like we're going to get a Superman, a real Superman film. It's going to be optimistic. It's going to be Cavill. It's going to be like this, what we were hoping for from the beginning. And then Gunn was like, nah. Prior to their hire, this news is, so after being told by the studio to announce my return back in October, prior to their hire, referring to James Gunn, this news isn't the easiest, but that's life. The changing of the guard is something that happens. I respect that. James and Peter have a universe to build. I wish them and all involved with the new universe the best of luck and the happiest of fortunes. For those who have been by my side through the years, we can mourn for a bit, but then we must remember Superman is still around. Everything he stands for still exists, and the examples he sets for us are still there. My turn to wear the cape has passed, but what Superman stands for never will. It's been a fun ride with you all, onwards and upwards. Holy cow, I forgot how gracious he was with this. Like, guys, I don't think you quite recall just how like, I remember when that Star Wars girl found out, and it like, people were rightfully, I feel, genuinely upset because Henry Cavill feels like the perfect bait and switch. I'm not worried per se, but I can't think of a better word. Tom Selleck never quite reached the level of fame that he should have. He didn't have the amount of projects that his presence and talent and just overall like persona really could have commanded. He's definitely a leading man, but if you look, he wasn't Indiana Jones, he wasn't James Bond, and yeah, I know he's American, but I digress. They don't care, clearly. More on that later, but he had Magnum PI and 3 Men and a Baby, and now he's doing Blue Bloods. And if you guys have not seen High Road to China, I can't recommend it enough. But he was he's so capable, and he has such a commanding presence. And you go back and you look, and you're always curious, of course, Knight Rider, but you're always curious, like, why did he never have the blockbuster, like the Star Wars or Indiana Jones, Lethal Weapon, gosh, my mind is now blanking. Or really any of those huge franchise hits or any of those, like, why was he not a leading man in more massive IPs? And I think what I foresee, at least, is because people look back and they're like, man, people are dumb. Tom Selleck should have definitely been involved in some of these projects. And I think what's going to happen is people are going to look back and they're going to be like, you know what? Henry Cavill should have been in a lot more projects. Like, why wasn't he? It's sort of like what's happening with Chris Hemsworth right now. He lost a leading man role to, gosh, who was that? Kurt Russell? I can't remember, but it's for a rom-com, a romantic comedy. I think, I'm pretty sure. And he was like, yeah, like when like Chris is going to have to wait his turn. And I'm like, bro, what are you talking about? Like, he is quite literally one of the most adored leading men in Hollywood by multiple fan bases for several different reasons. And the idea that you're gonna just pass him over because you think that you're more relevant, because they love to use that word, but the idea that you're gonna say something like that and mean it, I am just floored. But I will say, we got to look at Cavill's replacements for both The Witcher and Superman. So this is from Pimpmaster Broda. So I haven't been able to source this first picture of, it's supposed to be Liam on set of The Witcher. I can't seem to source this one, but it has been going around as his first behind the scenes outing as The Witcher. Guys, it's rough. He kind of looks like, especially with the belt. Now, I don't know if they are taking a break here. I'm not sure what the context of this frame is supposed to be. But he looks like he tried on his dad's clothes and they don't quite fit. Like, that's what it looks like. And then you have, are you guys ready for James Gunn's more optimistic, younger, more true adaptation of Superman from James Gunn? You guys ready? What? Like, first of all, I can't tell if he's burnt or if this is blood right here. I have no idea what's going on. I don't know what this is. It looks like a really cheaply done AI. Like, poorly executed. It was like, give me an alien eyeball in the sky that's shooting down at the ground and it over a city. Because this doesn't look like Metropolis. This is something that we've been struggling with. This is something that and I know people love the Nolan Batman films, but no film has gotten Metropolis or Gotham correct since, I would even say Batman and Robin did a better job. Because Gotham and Metropolis are supposed to be characters on their own. Gotham is, of course, just like this. It's this breathing, almost parasitic. Like, they say it in the comics. They say it. I forget which film they even say it. Like, the city will chew you up and spit you out. It will suck you dry of your soul. Right? Only the toughest can survive in Gotham. Gotham is a character. Now, Metropolis, because it has Superman, who is the embodiment of truth, justice, the American way, optimism, hope, strength, unity, perseverance, humility. Okay? Because he's the embodiment of all these things, Metropolis itself, it also has far less crime than Gotham, right? I mean, it's still there, obviously, but it is also a character, but it is a more hopeful, ambitious, just that character that always tries to kind of look on the bright side or come like bounces back from body blows and is able to make good things happen, right? This doesn't look, first of all, I don't know if it is, I have no idea what technique they used for this photograph. But he looks depressed. He looks like he's pulling on his boot. He's sitting down to do it. So it's not like this is a period piece anymore. Like it's not like we went back into the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, and there's phone booths and he's changing in the blink of an eye, faster than the blink of an eye, right? Like he is sat down, pulling on a boot, and he looks weary. He looks worn. He looks like he doesn't know if he wants to or has the strength to continue. Like and we're struggling with the same sort of scenario here, like where this looks like he tried on his dad's leather jacket and old punk rock jeans. This doesn't look like it fits him. You have all this bunching up here. You have this bunched up here. You can see that the trunks are back, which yay, I guess, but I hate this collar so much. It's like a weird, I don't even know. So Marines are called leathernecks because they used to have the way their uniforms used to be. There was stuff there to protect them from bayonets and swords, so you couldn't decapitate them as easily. And so one of the nicknames is leathernecks. This looks like a really bad attempt at that. Also, does not fit. Does not fit. Like, there's a gap there. There is a gap. I'm just, it bothers me. Like, if this is your very first, after everything you put the fan base through, after everything that fans were begging for, after the fans said, you better not screw us over because you've already lied to, like, James Gunn has lied so many times to DC fans. I'm shocked that anyone takes him seriously anymore. But at first it was, well, we're not sticking with Cavill because he's too old for the Vision. He's too old for the Vision that I have going on. That was the initial claim, right? So all right, okay. That sounds great. It's very funny for me because I'm going to show you the previous ones, and because it's apparently a confusing conspiracy theory, guys, about why Cavill was quote unquote fired. Here we go. From 2022. And boom. Here we go. As I said yesterday, it's very simple. He's a different age. Among those on the slate is Superman. In the initial stages, our story will be focusing on an early part of Superman's life, so that character will not be played by Henry Cavill. Explain to me how it's a conspiracy theory when you read that and not take away the fact that Cavill is too old for James Gunn's Vision. How do you not, like, how is that not the intent behind those words? He's a different age. Earlier part of Superman's life. So the character will not be played by Henry Cavill. Now, guys, ready? Ready? James Gunn shuts down conspiracy theory about Henry Cavill's DCEU exit. And it's like, they keep changing stuff to DC, DCEU, DCU. Like, pick something and stick with it. For real. It's just wild to me that we can't have any type of consistency. And this is nothing against David Cornsweet. And if I'm saying his name incorrectly, I apologize. But there's nothing against David. He didn't do anything wrong. He went for a role and he got it. Like, that's part of Hollywood. But I don't quite understand how that fits. Aside from the fact I had no interest in running DC until Peter decided to do it with me, so he could do the exec stuff and I could focus on creative. When I was hired to write Superman, it was always intended and is pitched as a new Superman story. So why would I lie about not planning that at the squad premiere, which would have amounted to the same thing at the end of the day? How does that particular conspiracy theory make sense? So what he's saying is that this right here, Gunn went on to clarify the rumor that he had always intended to replace Cavill as Superman since he helmed the Suicide Squad. Okay? So what he is saying is, no, when I did the Suicide Squad, I didn't plan to run DC. It fell into my lap. And then Cavill was too old. But now, remember, so he's said this. He had no intention to run it until Peter agreed to do it with him. And then he let me see if I can find it. Obviously I can't, but here we go. James Gunn says he's not making a young Superman movie. That's from 2023. So the story behind this has changed so much. Gunn wrote on Threads, I was never making a young Superman movie, just a Superman movie. I don't understand. Like, either this man can't remember what he said, or he doesn't care, or he thinks we're idiots who are just going to take him at face value. Like, the internet is forever. People seem to forget that. Like, we can look this stuff up, and we know we're not crazy. So the gaslighting is really going to have to stop. So Warner Brothers, I realize we went on quite a bit of a tangent there, but Warner Brothers has not been making the most solid business decisions of late. And that's being very kind when I say it like that. And I mean exceptionally kind. And yes, I'll be doing a video on both the Witcher and on the new Superman pick. But I just had to kind of throw that in there. I don't know what Warner Brothers is doing. They don't have the money to throw around. If you guys just take a beat and look at their earnings call from today, there's a reason that they announced Lord of the Rings projects. The problem is there's a good chance that Rings of Power has done serious brand damage going forward. Okay? And if that is the case, then no amount of bundling, no amount of creative accounting, no amount of friends in the media is going to save them. So there is a lot riding on this. And I think probably the biggest issue that they're going to have to face is the audience ourselves. Like it is a problem. Okay? So this is what I'm talking about when I say that Warner Brothers can't afford this. So this is from today's call. All right, this is from today's earning call. This is leverage and liquidity. So this is how much free cash flow, how much cash they have on hand. Somehow, I'm not sure how. Okay, so this is 2023, this is 2024. We went from almost negative $1 billion in free cash flow to now we have $390 million in free cash flow. So quarter 1 2024 cash provided by operating activities increased to $585 million from $630. So negative six. The parentheses, guys, means negative. All right. They put them in parentheses because that's how on a balance sheet you show negative in the prior year quarter. So in a quarter, they have rebounded $1 billion. Free cash flow increased to $390 million from negative $930 million, primarily driven by a more disciplined approach to content investment and timing of production, ongoing working capital improvement initiatives, and lower cash restructuring costs, partially offset by lower operating profits. As of March 31st, 2024, the company had $5,170 million drawn on its revolving receivables program, a $30 million decrease versus quarter 4. Do you guys understand what that is saying? Somehow, with negative cash, they repaid $1.1 billion of debt. Mean it. Because think about what Warner Brothers has done in the past 3 months. Absolutely nothing to garner them $1 billion. More than $1 billion. Like, we went from 930 to 390. So not only did they come up by $1 billion, they came up by, what is that? $1.27 billion. That's what you're looking at right here. That is how, is that right? Or somewhere in that ballpark. Like, that doesn't happen in 3 months. Something somewhere happened. And creative accounting has occurred, my friend. Like, oh, well, if you go look at the rest of, the consolidated statements and operations and because of the strikes, they had lower operating costs. Like, guys, all that stuff is fine and dandy, but here's their assets and liabilities, okay? So from December to March, nothing changed. It went down. How? What? Wait, how? Someone explain to me. Someone explain to me without a massive asset transfer. How? You don't just find $1 billion to pay off a $1.1 billion debt. That doesn't just happen. Where's the investment? Here we go. Net loss. It's down from $1,069 million to $966 million. And then operating loss. Oh, so our losses were less. Loss before income tax. So our losses were less, but somehow we're within 500 million of each other at the end of it. Like, I don't know how many of you know how to read a balance sheet. I'm telling you right now, something somewhere doesn't add up. I don't know where they got $1.1 billion to pay off debt. because it sure as heck wasn't from any of their properties. Maybe the parks? I don't know. But I am just floored at the decision making of Warner Brothers. They are desperate. They are going to mine this IP into its grave. They are going to hollow out all the rights they have for J.R.R. Tolkien. And it's going to go the way of Marvel, of Lucasfilm, of DC. You're going to have creative license and interpretation are going to rue the day and I should say rule the day, and we're going to rue the day that it happened. Warner Brothers is setting themselves up for failure. They need to look into new creative IP properties. Leave well enough alone. You already have the gold standard. You already have it. What you need to do, especially because Bernard Hill has just passed, God rest his soul. What you need to do, what you need to be doing is capitalizing on what already exists, video games, tabletop, stuff like that. Utilize it through merchandising and other still to this day. I was just talking about this with Max, with MVP, when we did our stream on Sunday. And it was supposed to be a 40K stream, and it turned into a Bernard Hill stream for obvious reasons. But to this day, my favorite video game is, and I have lots of IPs that I enjoy. I have lots of different games that I really do genuinely enjoy and that I love. But I will tell you right now that my favorite game to this day, one of the best made games in my humble opinion, has been The Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers on PS2. I still to this day love that game. I still think it is the best. Utilize those avenues. Take what you have and build from it. Don't haul it out and sell it for parts. Essentially what they're doing right now is organ trafficking. They're going to take out the very heart of the IP which built them into the behemoth that they are. And people are like, oh, well, they have Harry Potter too. I'm telling you right now, without Lord of the Rings, there is no Harry Potter. It's wild. It's wild. And they refuse to learn the lesson. And I don't know who I have to grab and shake forcefully while telling them to pull their heads out of their own butts and stop getting in their own way. And if they would just respect and listen to the customer fan base, the paying customer, not these activists on social media who don't care about any of this anyway, then they would be in a much better situation. Yes, Dread Pirate Mikey. Hello, by the way. It did save them a lot of cash. It saved them operating costs, but not all of them. And it certainly, I can't imagine it saved them $1.1 billion. I don't know where they got that from. Hi, Pepina. Yes, thank you. I am streaming again. Yes, he was the second unit director on the Hobbit trilogy films, but he is taking over, from what I understand, as he will be directing with Peter, Philippa, and Fran writing and producing. They'll be there every step of the way, apparently. We read the whole article. You can check earlier in the stream. But yes, Legionist, so Disney bought back $1 billion worth of stock. So for you guys who don't know, it's basically, do you guys remember the cup game where you have one ball under the cup and then you shift the cups and you got to try and find the ball, but somehow the ball always manages to disappear, right? So the shell game, the cup game, whatever you want to call it, that's what's currently happening. They're shifting the debt around. So they had to have, in order to say that Disney Plus was profitable, they had to shift that debt elsewhere. Right now, Disney Plus has been taking all of the massive losses from Disney. So it's been relieving the parks, it's been relieving the cinema, and they've been sort of hampering Disney Plus with all of that loss. Okay? Well, now investors are getting they're getting sick and tired of D Plus not being profitable. So all of a sudden this quarter Disney Plus squeaks out a tiny little profit, but then they say in the earnings call, "Hey, by the way, next quarter it's going to not make a profit again, but that's to be expected because of these reasons." So Nerderotic has said it before, and he is absolutely correct. Low information investors who are just going to take whatever is said, like as long as the headlines aren't too unfavorable, and as long as they still have people coming to the parks and going on cruises. But if you listen to the call, they call it the post-COVID demand is down. Now people don't want to travel as much. They've got it out of their system. But we expected that. No, you didn't. At no point did you expect that, because Universal is exploding in tourism. So why would they be up and you be down, especially in Florida where you guys are right next door to each other? Okay? Parents are pulling out of Disney. They don't want their kids around it. They don't want the messaging. They don't want the soapbox lectures. They don't want their kids being taught values that they don't align with. So parents are leaving Disney. Disney Plus picked up Bluey, and it exploded because parents like Bluey. But the second that Disney has any say over the actual content of Bluey, it's going to go down the drain just as fast, just like Cocomelon did. I don't know how many of you guys know that, but that's another property. It started on YouTube, and people loved it, and then it went mainstream, and guess what? That mainstream messaging got put in there as well. Okay, so keep your hobbies from the mainstream. That's lesson number 1, right? Gatekeep your hobbies and don't let Disney touch them. Tolkien was absolutely correct when he on his assessment of Disney as a company. That game was the Dark Souls of my childhood. Yes. You talk about Two Towers on PS2. Absolutely. Yeah. No, we refuse to learn our lessons, Pepina. I believe he did direct, or at least assistant directed second Venom movie. Yes. Yes, he has quite a bit of directing in his resume, which is why, guys, remember, he was second unit director on the Hobbit trilogy. And so know that just because Peter Jackson is involved and Andy Serkis, just because they are saying all of the right things does not mean that they are going to be as faithful to Tolkien as they originally were. Don't forget, we've got old directors coming out of the woodwork. I mean, Terminator Dark Fate comes to mind. These directors don't seem to care about their own legacy, and they're willing to crap on their own original work in order to stay relevant in Hollywood, and that just blows my mind. So do not think for 1 second that without pressure, at least from the fan base, and no, I'm not talking about self-deletion threats or deletion threats or anything like that. I'm talking if you can't make a faithful adaptation or a respectful, because you can't make a faithful adaptation, there's only 5 paragraphs. The Hunt for Gollum is literally, at most, the most you're going to get is 5 paragraphs out of the Fellowship of the Ring. That's it. 5 paragraphs. And you're going to make a 2.5-hour movie out of that. 2 films, if this article is accurate. Do not let up. Let them know that it needs to be at the very least, because it's going to be in their own words. It's not going to be in Tolkien's. It needs to, at the very least, be respectful of the existing lore, and it cannot undo the trilogy that already exists. Don't pull a Clone Wars, don't pull a Rebels, don't pull a Bad Batch and start adding in characters that have no business being, like, I swear, if an Ahsoka type character shows up in these films, I might actually lose my mind. There are so many incredible stories that you can tell. Not just from Middle Earth. I don't believe Warner Brothers has the rights to the Silmarillion. I don't think anybody does. I think it's still with the estate. So you can't make stories from the Silmarillion, okay, but there are other incredible stories that you can tell. There's other things that Warner Brothers has the rights to. And to be perfectly honest, there are so many great original stories waiting to be told. The problem is, oh, well, he's a white male, so we can't look at his idea. Like, that is the problem. That is the problem. You're going to overlook talented, capable individuals with well-written stories to feed a narrative. But they won't do it. They won't. That I don't know how else to tell. Like, I hate to be the one to break this to you guys, but the odds of this being a respectful film adaptation of Tolkien based off of 5 paragraphs out of 1 book spread across 2 films is highly unlikely. Highly unlikely, guys. Like, we're just going to be honest. Yes, they've said all the right things. Yes, they've done the member bears. We're going back to New Zealand. Weta is back. Peter, Fran, and Philip are back. Andy Serkis is directing, and he's going to be Gollum again. Like, we're going back to Middle Earth. Don't let the smoke and mirrors distract you guys. Don't let all of the pretty lights distract you. Understand that it's been over 20, as they said, it's been over 20 years. They're different people now. They have their egos, they have their fame, they have all of these things. So pray for the best, but you need to prepare for the worst, because this is most likely going to have a lot of studio interference, and we know Warner Brothers cannot get out of their own way. We know that they don't really care about the fan base, about the paying customer, about the fellowship, about the lore. They just want the money. And the people who were involved before, maybe humility will win the day. Maybe respect for Tolkien will win the day, and I pray that it does. But you guys need to be prepared for this to be an absolutely atrocious, antithetical, whatever word you want to use, to Tolkien's literary vision, because it's easier. It's easy to take 5 paragraphs and shove whatever you want into it and ignore Tolkien, because, well, Tolkien didn't say anything about this. So we're filling in. Do you guys remember the book that Tolkien never wrote? That's what they called Rings of Power. This is the story that Tolkien never told, probably for a good reason. Okay? So it's good night, Dread Pirate Mikey. We're going to wrap up soon too. I appreciate you coming. Yes. Yes, the hunt for Gollum has to. Here's the thing. It would have to involve Aragorn and Legolas, right? Because so the whole reason that Strider is at the Prancing Pony is because Gandalf trusted him to be there in case Gandalf could not make it. Right? So this is supposed to be why. Because remember, it's been 2 decades. It was, I know in the films, this was one of my big pet peeves with the films. The time lapse was really, it felt like Gandalf was gone for like 2 weeks. He was gone for 2 decades, guys. 2 decades. After he gave Frodo the ring that night after Bilbo's party. 2 decades. That did not translate in the film. Okay? Yes, I'm rounding up. I'm rounding up, General Ma. I'm rounding up. Okay? But it's 2 decades after he gave Frodo the ring. Okay? The film made it seem a month at most. So you would need Orlando Bloom back. You need Viggo Mortensen back. You need Ian McKellen back. You can't. Lee has passed, sadly, and Bernard Hill recently, like he just passed this past Sunday. He has been gone for less than a week, and all of those characters would be not necessarily critical, but they would definitely be in this story. So, but the odds of that, I mean, everybody, they're 20 plus years older now. Like, this is the truth of the matter. It's one thing for Gollum because, he is a motion captured CGI character who already looks hundreds of years old because he is. So be prepared for the worst. Pray for the best, but be prepared because this is not likely to go well. I just don't see how it could. Hello, Subhuman. Yeah, God, no. I hope they stay so far away from Mistborn. They just could not. There's no way that they could do Mistborn any kind of justice at all. None whatsoever. But that is the news. That is kind of what is happening. Those are some of the decisions that Warner Brothers has been making. Not very smart ones. I mean, they already rushed the DC universe when they had Affleck and Cavill and Momoa and Godot, right? Or Godot. So they already didn't let that breathe. The studio interference is real. Warner Brothers can't get out of their own way. They paid $500 million to J.J. Abrams, and nothing came of it. And James Gunn has done, honestly, he has disrespected and lied to DC fans since he got here. So I have little to no hope, especially after the official first still graphic poster, whatever you want to call it, of Superman. I'm just going to say, I don't say this often, but I was correct. Gunn does not care. He does not like the DC fan base. And he can't get out of his own, his ego will not allow him to make the film that everybody wants to see. And quite frankly, I said this when it came out and people learned to grill me, and now people are like, oh, you were kind of right, I guess. But, and I'm not trying to be like, I told you so, but when Guardian of the Galaxies 2 dropped, I was like, this is not good. I said that. I got roasted. I got Oh my God, my DMs were just like, did you hit your head? Like, how can you have such a shit take? Guardians of the Galaxy 2 is fantastic. I'm like, but it's not. It isn't. It is not good. And Guardians of the Galaxy 3 was also not that great. It was not good. I don't know how else to say it. And the fact that he has been, and then for him to come out and be like, I never wanted to run DC until Peter agreed to do the paperwork and I can just be the creative. Like, what? Why would you not, if this is something you're truly passionate about, if you really wanted to reboot, restart, reimagine, whatever word you want to use, why would you not be involved in every aspect of it? I'm not saying you got to be knee deep in the paperwork and the contract side of things, but it would probably be good to know what you're offering your actors and actresses. It would probably be good to know what they signed up for, because if you're expecting to make 2 films and they've signed on for 4, well, now you have to crap out 2 more films. Or you're expecting them to sign on for 4 films and they only sign on for 2. Now what do? Now they can walk. Freaking Netflix found that out the hard way because they disrespect it. I gotta make a movie. I gotta make a video on that because it's going to be very, very easy to tell who were fans of The Witcher before Henry Cavill took up the role of Geralt, because I have my Witcher books from years ago, years and years ago. They don't have the hit show on Netflix, the Netflix sticker. Those are nowhere on my books. And you can't get the covers I have anymore. You can't find them anywhere, at least to my knowledge. So it's going to be and I'm not saying that it's a bad thing if the show encouraged you to read the books. That's not what I'm saying. But I know that there was far less of that than the already existing fan base being pissed off at what they did to Geralt's story and to The Witcher, right? So it's going to be real easy to figure out who was a fan beforehand. And he said from the beginning, I am here for all 7 seasons as long as we can continue to tell good stories. And that man walked after 3. And now instead of 7 seasons, it got cut down to 5, but it's really 4. And they split season 4 into 2. They split season 4 into 2 pieces. And then are calling it season 4 and 5. Same strategy that they used for oh gosh, my brain left me. Star Trek? Was it? I think it was Star Trek. But regardless, that's not a winning. That does not instill confidence, guys. So Warner Brothers is going to Warner Brother, and they're going to get in their own way, like a jealous girlfriend mad at her own reflection. I'm just flabbergasted at the lack of critical thinking and horrible business decisions that are being made by a multi-billion-dollar company who cannot afford to make mistakes. Just wow. So, buckle up, Lord of the Rings fans. We have more hate and more disrespect to the lore and to Tolkien on its way. But I appreciate every single one of you guys for coming out. And I really do. Just, you guys are amazing. Thank you for hanging out with me for an hour and 40. Like I said, on Thursday nights, I try not to go over an hour and 45 minutes. Sometimes it ekes into 2, but I'm trying really hard to keep it at 90 minutes. So we went over a little bit, but not too terribly bad. I hope you guys are all having a wonderful 2024. I hope that the crazy weather that's been tearing through the US hasn't been too difficult for everybody. And I genuinely appreciate every single one of you. For my members, book club streams will be coming back soon. I'm also going to have a few member streams before then. And starting after next week, I will have more availability to just sort of hang out with you guys more frequently and be on a better schedule. Because it's summertime and I'm no longer teaching every single day for 9 hours other people's kids who have no manners and don't understand what respect is. But I digress. Another stream for another time. But thank you, everybody. I genuinely appreciate you. I hope you have a fantastic weekend. I cannot wait to see you guys all at FNT tomorrow night. And I hope that you guys just have a wonderful night. God bless. Godspeed. And thank you so much for just everything. Bye.